Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Przybylo. It is time for the Hoops Report with the great Bob Przybylo. Welcome back to the SoonerScoop.com studios. Welcome back to you out there on SoonerScoop.com's YouTube channel. And Oklahoma, they did what they needed to do, right? I think the last time that we met, we were talking about the North Carolina loss. We were talking about bouncing back, finding ways to get to 12-1, which I think everybody expected after you got through Arkansas, you got through Iowa, got through USC and Providence, games that maybe don't look as good now, but here they are, 12-1, rolling into a conference opener coming up on Saturday at 5 o'clock at the Lloyd Noble Center.
And welcome to football fans who might be tuning in right. for the first time this season.
Right. This is going to be a get to know your team before
what
Saturday.
Has been going on through the first 2 months of the season. And yeah, they did get those 2 wins last week. You've heard me talk on the unofficial 40. Wasn't impressive, but you did what you needed to do. And that I'm kind of moving the goalpost myself, if I can mix up sports here, in the fact that 16-point wins last year felt like an accomplishment.
Sure.
16-point wins last week felt like, they're not playing as well. So that's the progression of what this team has been able to do throughout the first 2 months. They've changed the expectations, and now can they do it again with Iowa State, who's ranked number 8 in the net rankings? They're not ranked in the top 25, but number 8 in the net rankings as the Big 12 grind is about to start.
Let's go back to the Central Arkansas game. I know that's probably a game that a lot of people didn't watch out there. It was the night of the Alamo Bowl, but it was a 16-point victory. You're able to get out of there with a 88-72 win in a game that was relatively close, much like the game on Sunday against Monmouth. Relatively close in the second half, and you used runs to kind of extend a lead and get out alive, if you will.
Yeah, the defense on last Thursday against Central Arkansas left a lot to be desired. It didn't seem like I don't know if they weren't feeding off the emotion, post-Christmas hangover, post-North Carolina hangover, but it wasn't their best effort. And even when they made that run, because that's been a hallmark of this team through the first 2 months of the season, is they can turn that switch on, make this run, and separate. They actually did that against Central Arkansas, but then they let the Bears back in it. And so then they were finally able to close it in the final 5 minutes. But you go back to Sunday against Monmouth, rough first half, then they put it together in the second half, and a lot of that was with the defense. The defense finally started to show up once again, and when the defense gets rolling for Porter Moser and company, the offense is very soon to follow.
72-56 victory on Sunday over Monmouth, and as we said, here they are. This is you're getting ready to go into a spell or a grind, if you will, over the next few months, where I think everybody kind of knows the what's out there with the Big 12. You're talking about net rating. Iowa State's number 8 right now. Houston number 1. BYU number 2. The top 2 teams in the country are the 2 newcomers to the league, and then Kansas at 11, Baylor at 17, Oklahoma at 29. Cincinnati, TCU, Texas Tech, Texas, they're all in the top 51. It's every night's going to be something different for the Big 12.
It is, and that's why we're talking so much about this very first game, because if you don't win this one, you don't hold serve at home, you're going to Fort Worth and Lawrence next week, and you're eyeing an 0-3 start, and that 12-1 start all of a sudden doesn't mean anything. So that's how pivotal this first game is going to be. And it's also, the net ranking is starting to show that the respect they had for OU initially is going away because of the fact that OU is one of the 4 teams in the top 30 right now that don't have a quad 1 win.
Sure.
So it's like...
Providence hasn't helped them out as much as maybe you thought.
Providence,
and on Wednesday night, Bryce Hopkins gets hurt in
Yep.
the second half at a loss that ended up for the Friars, ended up being a loss to Seton Hall, who Seton Hall did beat UConn a couple weeks ago. So I don't know if that's going to be... The Big East is very similar with the Big 12, right?
Yes.
Just in terms of night in, night out, it's going to be a grind. But you have plenty of opportunity. I know that Toby Rowland had tweeted out, I believe on Tuesday morning, just looking at quad 1s, opportunities as it stands now. They'll have 11 of the 18 games are against quad 1 opportunities.
Yeah, and this is where last year maybe they went 2-9 in these type of games. They're gonna have 5-6, 6-5, somewhere around that area is gonna be more than enough.
Sure.
To punch your ticket to the tournament and probably have a really nice seed. So we'll just see how these guys can withstand the grind. Guys that haven't been through it, like what I remember what Porter Moser said in his first year. No matter what conference and you think it's a grind. Like, no matter, it doesn't matter. The Missouri Valley, Big Ten, ACC, doesn't matter. You always feel your conference is a grind. But for guys like Latrey Darthard, like a Javion McCollum, when you're going to this level, to the Big 12, not like Rivaldo Soares with Oregon or John Hughley with Pittsburgh, but when you're coming from a Siena like McCollum, are you ready for what these 2 months are really going to be about?
Sure. And it's going to be interesting also in terms of, what this team is, what they could be. With so much opportunity out there, I think everybody over the first 2 seasons has seen everything that we've seen, right? You've been in games under the 8 timeout against really good teams. You've been in games coming out of that under 4 timeout. What is different for you in the first 13 games that you've seen this season that makes you think they can close some of these games out?
I think it's the experience, and that goes back to what Porter Moser talked about way back in October, was the way they attacked the transfer portal to get guys like Soares,
sure,
Darthard, Hughley, to not be relying on true freshmen and crunch time moments. Like, that's not a knock on Caden Cooper or redshirt freshman Luke Northweather. But when you get to these final 5 minutes, you want guys that have been there before, that, they're not overwhelmed by the moment. They're, their head isn't spinning. They're ready. They're willing to be that guy, and they want to have that moment. Someone like Uzan or take Owe, who's come up big multiple times throughout the course of the first couple months of this year. And you're just seeing it. He jokes all the time about having the 8-man starting rotation, but those are 8 guys who have played a lot of basketball
sure,
and they shouldn't be nervous or worried about what's coming up.
Specifically with Darthard here over the last couple games, it seems like he hasn't shot the ball very well. Do you think that that's more of a spell, that it's just been a bad few weeks? Because I think for this OU team, if they really want to finish in that middle of the pack, we'll say the middle tier, which would give you a really nice seed in the NCAA tournament, you got to get development, or you got to get contribution out of, I think, Darthard and Soares. Those are the 2 guys that I think going in and night out, they need to be consistent.
They need to be, and they're going to get wide open looks.
Sure.
They've had them throughout the beginning part of this season and haven't always fallen. Now, a Porter will continue to bring up, and he's not wrong, they don't let their shooting affect everything else. They are among the 5 best defenders on the team, so that a lot of times you'll see Darthard and Soares when it comes to crunch time, because they are able to, hey, if they missed a wide open corner 3, doesn't mean they don't get back on defense. Doesn't mean they're not moving their feet. They do all the little things correctly in all other facets of the game.
With Soares specifically, 8 for 34 right now from behind the arc, 23%. You have, Darthard. He actually did shoot the ball a little bit better in non-conference play. He's 21 of 64, hovering right around 32%.
It's the 1 of 7 on Sunday that hurt.
Yeah, but that's going to be something that we talked about on the Unofficial 40. When you get into Big 12 play, who's going to be that guy outside of Javion McCollum that you could really count on? And I guess we far enough in now. Otega Owe is 13 of 18, 72% from behind the arc right now. It's been very selective on when those moments are, but it seems like when he has taken a big shot, he's made most of them.
Yeah, and he's going to have to continue to do that. I mean, you're seeing, Lowe kind of got out of his funk a little bit last Sunday, but the thing I've said about this team consistently is that they can score, but they can't shoot. And eventually that's going to catch up to you if you keep having nights where Soares has wide open looks and he can't drain them down. I mean, you've got to be able to hit these wide open threes. You don't need to hit like 10 to 12 threes every single game, but if you're going to, take around 20 of them, you're going to have to hit at least 35, 40%, and that's not a given, and certainly hasn't been the case during the last 2 seasons.
I can't tell you how many times Oklahoma was in those games at the end of, the under 8 or the under 4 timeout, and they gave up offensive rebounds. And especially last year, that was a particular thing I remember with Kansas, with Baylor. It seemed like it just continued to add up. Even Iowa State, I believe, back here. Kansas State, I think, was another one that they beat Kansas State. What I'm trying to say is they got some guys that can finally grab boards. You feel better about that, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, what Sam Godwin has done, the leaps from year 1 to year 2, for someone that you just thought would be like just the small role player. He's still playing his role, but it's a much bigger one because he's made it that way. The way that he has performed has allowed him to be on the court a lot more, and he's been delivering. I mean, we've talked about his offensive rebounding stats like crazy because they stack up. Like, he's among the best in the last 10 years of college basketball, which is just ridiculous to think about. But he has a knack for knowing exactly where to find the ball. And once again, he's someone the offense is never going to run through. He knows what he's got to do, and he does it very well.
What do you make of Iowa State? I think that they're kind of in that tier of unknown. They had 2 losses, came out in Kissimmee, Florida at the ESPN Events Invitational, 71-62 loss to Virginia Tech. Next day, they got beat by Texas A&M, 73-69. They've won 6 in a row as they head to Norman. Great opportunity for Oklahoma to get on the right foot going into what is going to be a bear of a schedule in Big 12 play.
It is, and you mentioned that tier. I mean, between Texas Tech and TCU and Kansas State and Iowa State, they all did basically what they were expected to do in the non-con. They lost the games that people thought they might, and they won the games that they were supposed to. So you entered this initial stretch having no clue what some of these teams are going to be, what they're going to look like throughout the course of the rest of the season. Cyclones, OU beat Iowa. Cyclones trounced Iowa.
They beat their ass. I watched a little bit of that game up in Ames.
It's about all we really have to look at common opponent-wise, but it's just imperative to start off on the right note at home because they had Iowa State among the first home games last year and let that one slip away. When they had Iowa State in Texas and they lost by a combined 4 points, you put yourself on an uphill climb right out of the gate. That cannot happen again.
Well, and you look back at, either or the first or second year under Porter, and it basically if you win 1 or 2 of those games, just 1 or 2 of them, you're probably in the NCAA tournament. And the tone about the program, while it has changed in the first 13 games this season, much different than what it has been. Just in terms of Big 12 as a whole, what were they? They were preseason 13, right?
12 or 13.
12 or 13. Yeah. There's 14, 15 teams.
Yeah.
Buy or sell, you think that they finish higher than their preseason prediction? I know it's very green right now, but it does seem like you're going to get to a point where I think that you're going to look at the Kansas and the Houstons of the world. Maybe even Baylor can get into that mix. Texas by the end of the year with Max Asmus, maybe they can get into the mix, the transfer from Oral Roberts, but they should be in that middle tier. And I think that if you can do that, all of a sudden you look up, you're probably a 4, 5, 6 seed possibly in the NCAA tournament, which would be a fantastic year from where things were.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just about holding serve at home and stealing a couple on the road. You don't need to get them all, clearly, and the mental fortitude, and that's what we'll see how Los and Ortega and Godwin, how much they learned from last year in terms of not letting one game affect another, not going through those little 3-4 game slumps that they've just gone through during these first 2 years under Moser. Can they figure that out and know that one bad outing doesn't mean your week is done?
It's hard when you lose a game that you're not supposed to, and especially if it's a home game, and then all of a sudden you're looking up and you're having to go to Austin or Lawrence or Waco. Lubbock's been a problem for Oklahoma over the last couple of years. It seems like there is no breathing room for you to be able to screw up a game that you really should win, and that's why Saturday, I feel like, even though it's number 1 of 18, it feels very important.
It does, especially just because of the way the schedule is. Like we mentioned, going back-to-back on the road next week. I mean, you're seriously eyeing 0-3 if you can't get it done. And honestly, I'm sure Porter might say, we're not out of it. We just lost a couple of road games, and, now we got to get those back. But you would just be, again, that uphill climb, 0-3. Baylor did it last year. They started off 0-3 and found its footing. You don't want to have to rely on always trying to be able to bounce back. Like, if you can win against Cyclones, we don't know what the Frogs are really all about. Maybe you're going in 2-0 to Lawrence and trying to get that ever-elusive win at the Fog.
I'd kind of forgotten that Avery Anderson, the former Oklahoma State star, is now down in Fort Worth, so Oklahoma will be seeing him here in a week's time. It is the 8-year anniversary today. Not to bring up bad stuff for Oklahoma fans, but it is the 8-year anniversary of the Buddy Hield game up in Lawrence when he dropped 46 in the double overtime loss.
Yeah, that was just one of the most impressive performances that I've ever seen in the college basketball game. It's just both teams duking it out, one blow after another. And I know your mentions. I was waiting for the first one to say Kadeem Latin just got to hit a free throw.
That's all you got to do, Kadeem. That's all you got to do is hit a free
throw.
That's
all he's going to be known for. But that was such an instant classic. And kudos to Buddy for what he's been able to do. I didn't think he would still be in the league at
He's
this
been
point.
incredible. He's a big player on a Pacers team that is kind of the uptick program. Not the uptick program in the country, because that's the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they've been really good at Indiana, beating up on Milwaukee, I believe, on Tuesday night. So it should be interesting. It's going to be really fun. I'm excited to go up to Lawrence next Saturday to go to Allen Fieldhouse for one final time. I know that there's a number of media members that are expecting or looking forward to that trip. Probably going to be the final trip up to Lawrence for the foreseeable future.
First, last, and only, maybe.
Yeah.
I've never been there for a basketball game. Of course,
It's worth it.
Been there time and time for football. But, yeah, I mean, if it's not now, when is it ever going to happen? And maybe this is the team that can get it done. It's been weird. They played really well in Lawrence.
Yeah.
Like
last 2 years.
Like, they have not just
The 2 years ago with Jordan Goldwire?
Yeah. Like,
it's unbelievable.
Don't get run out of the building, but they haven't been able to get over the hump. Can they do it this year?
No doubt. First things first, though, Oklahoma opens up conference play coming up on Saturday at the Lloyd Noble Center, 5 o'clock against Iowa State, and then TCU next week. We will talk to you. We will reconvene right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel, probably midweek sometime in between the TCU and the Kansas game next week to kind of get a little bit of insight into what happened on Saturday in Norman. For Bob Przybylo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. This has been a SoonerScoop.com Hoops Report right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel.